Captain Elena Vasquez stared at the rusted hulk floating in the asteroid field, her coffee growing cold in the zero-gravity mug. The ship before them looked like someone had taken a cargo freighter, beaten it with hammers, and then left it to rot in space for 50 years. Which, according to the salvage report, was exactly what had happened. "That's our assignment?" Lieutenant Rodriguez asked from the pilot's seat, his voice carrying the kind of disbelief that comes with 3 tours of duty and too many bureaucratic disasters. "Command wants us to tow that junk heap back to base." Elena nodded, though she shared his skepticism. The vessel ahead was officially designated as Salvage Unit 347B, but the crew had already started calling it the Rust Bucket. It was a human cargo ship from the old colonial expansion era, back when humanity was still learning how to build ships that could survive the harsh realities of deep space. Most of those early vessels had been scrapped or lost decades ago. Finding one intact, even in this condition, was like discovering a fossil. "Orders are orders," Elena said, though she couldn't keep the disappointment from her voice. She'd been hoping for something more exciting than a glorified towing job. Her crew aboard the UES Retriever had been expecting a real salvage operation, maybe even some alien tech to study. Instead, they got babysitting duty for a piece of human space junk. The Retriever moved closer to the derelict ship, its sensors painting a detailed picture of the damage. The hull was pocked with micrometeorite impacts. Several sections had been patched with emergency sealant that had long since failed, and one of the main engines was completely missing. Whatever had happened to this ship, it had been through hell. "Running deep scans now," announced Chief Engineer Martinez from the engine room. "Hull integrity is compromised in 17 locations. Life support is completely dead. Main computer appears to be wait, that's odd." "What is it, Chief?" Elena asked, moving to the sensor station. "The main computer core is still functional. Minimal power draw from some kind of backup system I've never seen before. It's been running continuously for over 40 years. That got Elena's attention. Ships from that era had notoriously unreliable computer systems. The fact that anything electronic was still working after 4 decades in space was remarkable, if not impossible. "Any idea what it's been computing for 40 years?" she asked. "Negative, Captain. The system is encrypted with algorithms I don't recognize. We'll need to get aboard and access it directly." Elena considered their options. Standard protocol was to attach towing cables and drag the hulk back to the nearest salvage yard. But if there was functioning technology aboard, especially something that could run for 40 years without maintenance, that changed things. The Galactic Council paid well for unique human innovations, particularly in computer science and engineering. "Prep the boarding shuttle," she decided. "I want a full team over there. Rodriguez, you're with me. Martinez, bring your best diagnostic equipment. Dr. Chun, we might need your expertise if we find anything biological." Dr. Amy Chun, the ship's xenobiologist and medical officer, looked up from her research station with interest. "You think there might be life aboard that wreck?" "I think there might be something aboard that wreck worth more than scrap metal," Elena replied. "And I'd rather find out what it is before we hand it over to the salvage crews." An hour later, Elena found herself floating through the airlock of the derelict ship, her suit's lights cutting through the darkness of the corridor beyond. The interior was in better condition than the exterior suggested, though everything was covered in a fine layer of dust and ice crystals. Emergency lighting strips along the floor still glowed weakly, powered by whatever system was keeping the computer core running. "Atmosphere is completely gone," Dr. Chin reported through the comm system. "But the ship's structure is sound. These old colonial transports were built to last." They made their way through the ship methodically, mapping the layout and cataloging anything of interest. The cargo holds were empty except for some standard shipping containers that held nothing but spoiled food and rotted textiles. The crew quarters showed signs of hasty evacuation, with personal belongings scattered about and emergency lockers opened. "Whatever happened here, they left in a hurry," Rodriguez observed, examining an abandoned tablet that crumbled to dust at his touch. It was in the ship's computer core that they made their first real discovery. The room was surprisingly warm, heated by the continuous operation of systems that should have failed decades ago. Banks of processors hummed quietly in the darkness, their status lights creating a constellation of red and green stars. "This is incredible," Martinez breathed, running his scanner over the equipment. "These systems are running at 97% efficiency. The power management alone is beyond anything in current use. And look at this processing architecture." Elena peered over his shoulder at the scanner readings. She wasn't an engineer, but even she could see that something was unusual about the data patterns scrolling across the screen. "It looks like it's running some kind of continuous calculation," she said. "Can you determine what?" "Give me a few minutes," Martinez said, connecting his diagnostic equipment to the main console. "I need to interface with the system safely. If I disrupt whatever it's doing, we might lose 40 years of computation." While Martinez worked, Elena and the others continued exploring. In the captain's quarters, Dr. Chen found something that made her call for the others immediately. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, her voice tight with excitement. Elena floated over to find Dr. Chen hovering over the captain's desk, where a personal journal lay open. The pages were preserved in the vacuum of space, the handwriting still clearly visible. "Listen to this," Dr. Chen said, reading from the journal. "Day 1247. The calculations continue. Dr. Okafor believes we're close to a breakthrough. The quantum resonance patterns we've been tracking show consistent mathematical relationships. If we're right, this could revolutionize space travel. But the company doesn't understand. They want us to abandon the research and focus on cargo runs." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold vacuum around them. "Keep reading. Day 1251. We've made contact with something. The quantum field fluctuations aren't random at all. There's intelligence behind them, a form of consciousness that exists in the spaces between dimensions. Dr. Okafor calls them the architects. They've been trying to communicate with us through mathematical sequences embedded in quantum foam." "Captain," Martinez's voice crackled through the comm, "you're going to want to see this. I've managed to access the system's core functions. This computer isn't just running calculations. It's receiving and processing data from an external source. The signal is still active." Elena's pulse quickened. "External source? From where?" "Unknown. But the data stream is incredibly complex. It appears to be some kind of multidimensional mathematical framework. And, Captain, the processing patterns suggest this isn't just receiving data. It's actively communicating with something." Elena looked around at her team, seeing her own mixture of excitement and concern reflected in their faces. They'd come here expecting to salvage scrap metal and instead had stumbled onto what might be humanity's first contact with an alien intelligence. "How long has this communication been going on?" she asked. "According to the logs, it started 43 years, 7 months, and 12 days ago," Martinez replied. "And it's been continuous ever since." Dr. Chen was still reading from the journal. Day 1267. "The company has ordered us to return to Earth immediately. They're calling our research non-productive use of company resources. Dr. Okafor refuses to abandon the work. She says we're on the verge of understanding something fundamental about the nature of reality itself. The crew is divided. Half want to return home. The others want to continue the research." "What happened to them?" Rodriguez asked. Elena had a growing suspicion, but Dr. Chun confirmed it as she turned the page. Day 1280. Dr. Okafor has locked herself in the computer core. She's rerouted all ship's power to maintain the quantum communication array. The rest of the crew has abandoned ship in the escape pods. I should go with them, but I can't leave her alone. If she's right, if we're really talking to beings from another dimension, this could be the most important discovery in human history. And that's the last entry, Dr. Chin said softly. Elena floated in the silence of the derelict ship, processing what they'd learned. Somewhere aboard this vessel was the body of someone who had sacrificed everything to maintain contact with an alien intelligence. And For over 40 years, that contact had continued. Martinez, can you determine if the communication is two-way? She asked. Analyzing now, he replied. Yes, Captain. The system is definitely sending data as well as receiving it. It's a full conversation that's been going on for 4 decades. Elena made a decision that would change everything. We're not taking the ship back to the salvage yard. Signal the retriever. Tell them we need a full science team out here immediately. And contact Fleet Command. Tell them we may have found evidence of ongoing alien contact. Captain, Rodriguez said carefully, are you sure about this? If we're wrong, our careers are over. Elena looked around the computer core, listening to the quiet hum of systems that had faithfully maintained an impossible conversation across the void of space for longer than some of her crew had been alive. If we're right, she said, our careers are the least of our concerns. As if responding to her words, the status lights on the computer banks suddenly shifted from their steady glow to a rhythmic pulsing pattern. New data streams began flowing across Martinez's diagnostic screens, more complex and urgent than anything they'd seen before. Captain, Martinez said, his voice filled with awe and growing alarm. Whatever's on the other end of this conversation just changed its communication pattern. It's like they know we're here. Elena felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now, floating in the darkness of a derelict ship, they had their answer. And that answer was reaching out to them through mathematics and quantum fields, speaking in a language of pure information that transcended the barriers between dimensions. The question now wasn't whether humanity was alone. The question was whether humanity was ready for what came next. Dr. Chun, start documenting everything, Elena ordered. Martinez, maintain all current system functions, but begin preparing a full analysis of the communication protocols. Rodriguez, establish a secure channel to Fleet Command. Priority Alpha classification. As her crew sprang into action, Elena floated in the heart of the derelict ship and wondered if she was making the right choice. They'd come here looking for salvage and instead found something that could change the course of human civilization. The ship around them was no longer just a piece of space junk. It had become humanity's first embassy to another dimension. And somewhere in the quantum foam between realities, ancient intelligences were waiting to see what humanity would do next. The Rust Bucket was about to become the most important ship in human space. Elena just hoped humanity was ready for the responsibility that came with it. Outside the ship, the stars continued their eternal dance, unaware that the galaxy had just become a much more interesting place. And in the depths of space, other ships were already changing course, drawn by signals that had been sent the moment humanity discovered they were no longer alone. The salvage operation had become first contact, and there was no going back. 3 days after the discovery, the derelict ship had become the center of the most intense scientific operation in human history. The U.S. Retriever had been joined by 6 other vessels, including the research ship Aurora and the heavy cruiser Defiant. What had started as a simple salvage mission had exploded into humanity's first confirmed contact with alien intelligence. Elena stood in the hastily constructed command center aboard the Retriever, watching screens that displayed data streams she couldn't begin to understand. Dr. Sarah Okafor's 40-year conversation with beings from another dimension had suddenly become the most important dialogue in human existence. Status report, Elena said as Dr. Janet Hawkins, the fleet's chief xenolinguist, approached with a tablet full of analysis. The communication patterns are incredibly sophisticated, Dr. Hawkins said, her voice filled with professional excitement mixed with exhaustion. They're not using any form of language as we understand it. Instead, they're communicating through pure mathematical relationships embedded in quantum field fluctuations. It's like they're speaking in the fundamental laws of physics themselves. Elena nodded, though she was still struggling to grasp the implications. What are they saying? That's what makes this so remarkable, Dr. Hawkins continued. The early communications from 40 years ago appear to be basic mathematical concepts. Prime numbers, geometric relationships, physical constants. It's exactly what we would expect from a first contact scenario. Two intelligences establishing common ground through universal mathematical truths. But it evolved, Elena said, remembering the complex data streams they'd observed. Beyond anything we thought possible. Over the decades, the conversation has become incredibly sophisticated. They've been sharing information about physics, engineering, even philosophy. And, Captain, some of the scientific concepts they've shared are centuries ahead of our current understanding. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. How far ahead? Dr. Hawkins pulled up a display showing energy output calculations. Based on the power generation systems they've described, they're working with technology that could provide unlimited clean energy. They've shared mathematical proofs for faster-than-light travel that don't violate relativity. And that's just the beginning. Before Elena could respond, Chief Martinez's voice crackled over the comm system. Captain, you need to see this immediately. We found Dr. Okafor's body, and she's not dead. Elena's blood ran cold. What do you mean she's not dead? I mean she's in some kind of suspended animation in the computer core. Her life signs are minimal but stable. She appears to be directly connected to the quantum communication array through neural interfaces we don't recognize. Elena was moving before Martinez finished speaking, pulling herself through the ship's corridors toward the computer core with Dr. Chun close behind. They found Martinez and a team of medical technicians surrounding a chamber they'd somehow missed during their initial exploration. Inside the chamber, suspended in a web of cables and mysterious technology, was Dr. Sarah Okafor. Her body was perfectly preserved, though she appeared to have aged only slightly in the 40 years since the ship's abandonment. More shocking were the neural interface ports that had been surgically implanted in her skull, connecting her directly to the ship's computer systems. How is she alive? Elena asked, staring at the impossibly complex life support systems surrounding the chamber. The technology keeping her alive isn't human, Dr. Chen said, running her scanners over the life support apparatus. The power source alone operates on principles I don't understand. And these neural interfaces are far beyond anything in our current medical technology. Captain, Martinez added, the quantum communication array has been modified extensively since the ship's original design. Most of this equipment isn't in any human technological database. I think Dr. Okafor didn't just make contact with these beings. I think they helped her build the technology needed to sustain the conversation. Elena stared at the woman who had sacrificed everything to maintain humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. Is she conscious? Difficult to tell, Dr. Chen replied. Her brain activity is unlike anything I've ever seen. She appears to be in a state of constant data processing. It's almost like she's become part of the communication system itself. Captain Dr. Hawkins' voice came through the comms system urgently. You need to return to the command center immediately. The communication patterns have changed again. The entities are requesting direct contact with whoever is in command of this operation. Elena exchanged glances with her team. They want to talk to me? More than that, Dr. Hawkins replied. Based on the mathematical progressions they're sending, they want to meet face to face. They're providing coordinates for a location in this solar system. Elena made her way back to the command center, her mind racing with possibilities and dangers. The implications of what they discovered were staggering. Humanity had found allies who could provide technology beyond their wildest dreams. But they'd also found beings capable of keeping a human alive for 40 years using technology that bordered on the supernatural. Show me the coordinates, she said as she reached the command center. Dr. Hawkins pulled up a star chart showing their current position and a blinking point several million kilometers away. It's at the edge of this asteroid field. The location appears to be completely empty space, but they're insisting that's where the meeting should take place. Admiral Sarah Morrison's image appeared on the main screen, her face grave with the weight of the situation. Captain Vasquez, I need a full status report. What exactly are we dealing with here? Elena took a breath and began explaining everything they'd learned. The 40-year conversation, the advanced technology, Dr. Okafor's condition, and now the request for a face-to-face meeting. Admiral Morrison listened without interruption, her expression growing more serious with each revelation. "Recommendations?" the Admiral asked when Elena finished. "We go to the meeting," Elena said without hesitation. "This is the greatest opportunity in human history. We can't let fear prevent us from taking advantage of it. And the risks? Unknown," Elena admitted. "But if these beings wanted to harm us, they've had 40 years to do it. They chose to communicate instead. That suggests peaceful intentions." Admiral Morrison was quiet for several moments, considering the situation. "Very well, Captain. Take your ship to those coordinates. But you'll have an escort. The Defiant will shadow you at a safe distance. And we're calling in additional fleet units. If this goes wrong, I want overwhelming firepower available." "Understood, Admiral." "And Captain, the entire future of human civilization may depend on the next few hours. Don't let us down." 2 hours later, the retriever approached the coordinates provided by the entities. Elena stood on the bridge, surrounded by her crew and the assembled scientists, all of them staring at empty space that showed no signs of anything unusual. "Sensors detect no ships, structures, or energy signatures," Rodriguez reported. "Whatever they want us to meet, it's not here yet." "Captain," Martinez called from his engineering station, "I'm detecting a massive buildup of quantum field fluctuations. Something big is about to happen." Elena felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up. "All stop, maintain position, and prepare for anything." The space in front of them began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist as something enormous pushed its way through the barriers between dimensions. What emerged was unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. The ship, if it could be called a ship, was a structure of impossible geometry. It seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human eye could process, its surface shifting and flowing like liquid metal while maintaining a solid structure. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a creation of beings who had mastered the fundamental forces of reality itself. "My God," Dr. Hawkins whispered. "It's magnificent." "It's also the size of a small moon," Rodriguez added, his voice tight with concern. Elena forced herself to remain calm as the massive structure settled into normal space. Despite its size, it showed no signs of aggressive intent. Instead, a gentle beam of energy reached out from the alien vessel and began scanning the retriever. "We're being scanned," Martinez reported. "But it's not intrusive. It's almost like they're asking permission." "Let them scan us," Elena decided. "We came here to make contact." The scan completed within seconds, and then something extraordinary happened. A section of the alien ship's surface began to reshape itself, forming what was unmistakably a docking port designed specifically for human ships. "They're inviting us aboard," Elena said, though she could hardly believe it herself. "Captain," Dr. Chen said nervously, "we have no idea what kind of environment we'll find on that ship. It could be deadly to humans." "Only one way to find out," Elena replied. "Prep the shuttle. We're going to meet our neighbors." The shuttle bay of the alien vessel was a marvel of technology that seemed to adapt itself to human needs as they entered. The atmosphere was perfectly breathable, the gravity was Earth normal, and the lighting was soft and pleasant. It was as if the entire environment had been designed specifically for human comfort. Elena led a small team consisting of Dr. Hawkins, Dr. Chun, and Chief Martinez through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as they walked, always providing a clear path forward. The walls were covered with displays showing complex mathematical equations and star charts that included galaxies far beyond human exploration. They found themselves in a vast chamber where 3 beings waited for them. The entities were tall and graceful, with forms that seemed to shift between solid matter and pure energy. They communicated not through speech, but through direct transmission of concepts and emotions that the humans could somehow understand perfectly. "Welcome," Young ones, the central being projected. We have waited long for this moment. Elena stepped forward, trying to project confidence despite the overwhelming nature of the encounter. We are representatives of humanity. We thank you for this opportunity to meet. You thank us. The being's amusement was palpable. It is we who must thank you. Your Dr. Okafor opened a bridge between our dimensions that we had been trying to establish for millennia. Through her sacrifice, she has given both our species a gift beyond measure. What kind of gift? Dr. Hawkins asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her nervousness. The beings exchanged what might have been glances, and then the chamber around them filled with holographic displays showing technology that defied understanding. Ships that could travel between galaxies in moments. Energy sources that could power entire civilizations. Medical technology that could extend life indefinitely. We are the architects, the lead being explained. We exist primarily in the dimensions between dimensions, in the quantum foam that underlies all reality. We have watched countless young civilizations struggle with the limitations of three-dimensional existence. Most destroy themselves before they learn to transcend those limitations. But humanity is different. Elena asked, humanity possesses something rare among young species. You have the courage to reach beyond your limitations, even at great personal cost. Dr. Okafor's 40-year vigil proved this. She could have rejoined her people at any time, but she chose to maintain the bridge between our peoples. Elena thought about the woman lying in suspended animation aboard the derelict ship, sacrificing her life for a conversation with beings beyond human understanding. What happens now? Now, young Elena Vasquez, humanity takes its first steps toward becoming something greater than you can imagine. But the choice must be yours. We offer knowledge and technology, but we do not impose it. Your species must decide whether it is ready to join the community of advanced civilizations that exists beyond your current perception. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. Humanity was being offered membership in some kind of galactic community, but it would require fundamental changes to human civilization. What would be required of us? She asked. Growth, learning, the willingness to accept that your current understanding of reality is only the beginning. Your species would need to evolve, not just technologically, but philosophically. You would need to learn to think in terms of the greater good of all conscious beings, not just humanity. Elena looked at her team, seeing the same mixture of excitement and fear in their faces that she felt herself. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, of a species' lifetime. But it was also a responsibility that could reshape human civilization in ways they couldn't predict. You need not decide immediately, the being continued. Return to your people. Share what you have learned. When humanity is ready to take the next step, the bridge Dr. Okafor created will remain open. The meeting lasted several more hours, with the architects sharing basic concepts that would advance human science by centuries while being careful not to overwhelm them with information they weren't ready to handle. When the humans finally returned to their ship, their heads were spinning with possibilities. As the retriever pulled away from the massive alien vessel, Elena watched it fade back into the dimensions between dimensions, leaving only empty space and the memory of the most important conversation in human history. Captain, Dr. Hawkins said quietly, what do we tell Earth? Elena stared at the stars, knowing that humanity would never be the same after today. The derelict ship they'd come to salvage had become the most important vessel in human space. Not because of its technology, but because of the bridge it had created between humanity and the infinite possibilities that lay beyond their current understanding. We tell them the truth, she said. We tell them that we're not alone, and that the universe is far more wonderful and terrible than we ever imagined. Then, we let them decide what kind of species they want humanity to become. The journey back to the derelict ship felt different now. They weren't just returning to a piece of salvage. They were returning to humanity's first embassy to another dimension, to the ship that would become the cornerstone of humanity's future among the stars. 6 months after first contact, the former salvage vessel had been completely transformed. What was once called the Rust Bucket now bore the official designation UES Gateway, and it had become the most heavily guarded and technologically advanced ship in human space. Elena stood in the ship's new command center, watching as teams of engineers worked alongside alien technology that still seemed more like magic than science. Dr. Sarah Okafor had been successfully awakened from her 40-year vigil 3 weeks earlier, though the process had been complex beyond anything in human medical experience. The architects had provided detailed instructions for safely disconnecting her from the quantum communication array without losing the neural pathways that had made her unique among humans. She was now the first human to possess what the aliens called dimensional awareness, the ability to perceive and interact with the quantum foam that existed between realities. Status report on the gateway modifications, Elena requested as DR. Okafor approached, moving with the strange, fluid grace that had become characteristic of her enhanced state. The quantum resonance chambers are operating at 98% efficiency, Dr. Okafor said, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before her transformation. The communication array has been expanded to handle simultaneous contact with 12 different architect collectives across 7-dimensional layers. We're no longer just talking to one group of beings, Elena. We're connected to an entire network of advanced civilizations. Elena still found it difficult to comprehend the scope of what humanity had stumbled into. The architects weren't just one species, but rather a collective of dozens of advanced civilizations that had transcended normal 3-dimensional existence. Each collective represented thousands of years of evolution and technological development, and they were all interested in humanity's potential. And the defensive systems? Elena asked, mindful of the growing tension that had developed since news of first contact had spread throughout human space. Chief Martinez looked up from his engineering console, where he was monitoring systems that combined human engineering with architect technology in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The dimensional shields are online and tested. According to the architects, they'll protect us from any conventional weapons humanity currently possesses. The quantum disruption field can disable electronics within a radius of 50,000 kilometers. And the emergency dimensional jump system can move the entire ship into interdimensional space within 30 seconds. Elena nodded grimly. The defensive systems had become necessary as political tensions on Earth reached dangerous levels. Not everyone was pleased with humanity's contact with alien intelligences, and several extremist groups had already attempted to destroy what they call the alien contamination site. The gateway had survived 3 separate attack attempts, though Elena suspected that was more due to architect intervention than human defensive capabilities. Captain Lieutenant Rodriguez called from the communication station. We're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Morrison. She's requesting an immediate conference. Elena made her way to the secure communications chamber, a room that had been shielded with architect technology to prevent any form of electronic surveillance or interference. Admiral Morrison's holographic image appeared moments later, her expression grim. Captain, we have a problem, the Admiral began without preamble. The Hegemony Coalition has issued an ultimatum. They're demanding that all architect technology be turned over to a joint Earth government committee for proper oversight and distribution. They've given us 72 hours to comply. Elena felt her stomach drop. The Hegemony Coalition represented nearly 40% of Earth's population and controlled some of the most powerful military forces in human space. They've been vocal in their opposition to unrestricted contact with alien civilizations, arguing that such contact should be managed by established governmental authorities rather than independent military units operating beyond proper oversight. What's their real concern? Elena asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Power, Admiral Morrison replied bluntly. The technology the architects have shared could revolutionize human civilization, but it could also make existing power structures irrelevant. Clean, unlimited energy makes oil and gas corporations obsolete. Medical technology that can extend human life indefinitely makes certain pharmaceutical companies redundant. And faster-than-light travel could make territorial boundaries meaningless. Elena understood the political calculations, but she also understood something the Earthbound politicians didn't. Admiral, the architects aren't just sharing technology with humanity as a whole. They're specifically sharing it with individuals and groups they believe can use it responsibly. If we turn control over to the Coalition, the architects might withdraw their offer entirely. I know that, Captain. But if we don't comply, the Coalition is threatening military action. They've got 3 battle groups moving toward your position as we speak. Elena felt a chill run through her. The idea of humans fighting other humans over access to alien technology was exactly the kind of destructive behavior the architect had warned against. What are our orders, Admiral? Officially, you're to comply with all lawful orders from properly constituted authority, Admiral Morrison said carefully. Unofficially, the integrity of the Gateway and its mission is of paramount importance to the future of human civilization. Use your best judgment, Captain. Elena understood the unspoken message. Admiral Morrison couldn't officially sanction resistance to the Coalition, but she was counting on Elena to find a way to preserve humanity's relationship with the architects without starting a civil war. Understood, Admiral. We'll handle the situation appropriately. As the communication ended, Elena found herself facing the most difficult decision of her career. She could surrender the Gateway to the Coalition and hope they would be responsible stewards of humanity's first alien contact. Or she could resist and risk plunging humanity into civil conflict just when they were being offered membership in a galactic community. Dr. Okafor, Elena said as she returned to the command center, I need to consult with the architects immediately. We have a situation that could affect our entire relationship with them. Dr. Okafor nodded and moved to the quantum communication array. The process of contacting the architects had become routine over the months, though Elena still found it remarkable to watch. Dr. Okafor would place her hands on the neural interface ports and essentially project her consciousness into the quantum foam, where she could communicate directly with beings existing in higher dimensions. They're aware of the situation, Dr. Okafor said after several minutes of communion. The Coalition's military forces are already being monitored by architect sensor networks. They want to speak with you directly, Elena. Elena hesitated. Direct contact with the architects through Dr. Okafor's enhanced consciousness was an intense experience that left most humans disoriented for hours afterward. But, given the circumstances, she didn't have a choice. Do it, she said, placing her hand on the secondary interface that had been installed for such emergencies. The sensation of contacting the architects was indescribable. Elena's consciousness seemed to expand beyond the boundaries of her physical body, touching minds that existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously. When they spoke, their words carried the weight of eons of experience. Elena Vasquez, you face a choice that has faced every species at this crucial point in their development. Do you preserve unity at the cost of progress? Or do you risk conflict to protect the possibility of transcendence? I don't want humanity to tear itself apart fighting over your gifts, Elena replied, though she wasn't sure she was speaking aloud or projecting thoughts. Nor do we. But observe the pattern, young Elena. Throughout the galaxy, every species that has successfully transcended three-dimensional existence has faced this moment. Those who chose unity without wisdom stagnated and eventually destroyed themselves. Those who chose progress despite conflict found ways to grow beyond their limitations. Elena felt the weight of galactic history pressing down on her. What are you saying? We are saying that humanity's relationship with us cannot be controlled by fear-based political entities. The technology we share responds to consciousness, intention, and wisdom. It cannot be hoarded, controlled, or weaponized by those who lack the spiritual development to understand its true purpose. Elena began to understand. The technology only works for people who are ready for it. Precisely. Your Dr. Okafor spent 40 years developing the consciousness necessary to bridge our dimensions. Your crew has shown the courage and wisdom to use our gifts responsibly. But political entities driven by fear and the desire for control cannot access what they seek to possess. So, if we turn the gateway over to the coalition, the technology will become inert. The quantum communication array will cease to function. The dimensional shields will fail. They will possess only the physical materials, which are worthless without the consciousness required to activate them. Elena felt a sense of relief mixed with new concerns. But that means conflict is inevitable. They won't believe us when we tell them the technology won't work for them. Conflict may be inevitable regardless of your choices, Elena Vasquez. The question is whether humanity will face that conflict while still connected to the galactic community, or whether they will face it alone. Elena understood the choice now. She could surrender the gateway to prevent immediate conflict, but doing so would cost humanity its connection to the architects and leave them to solve their problems without outside help. Or she could resist, maintain the connection, and hope that humanity could grow beyond its current limitations before destroying itself in civil war. There's a third option, the architects continued, one that requires great courage from you and your crew. What kind of option? Demonstration. Show your species what they stand to lose. Show them what they could become. Give them a choice based on knowledge rather than fear. Elena felt her consciousness returning to her physical body as the communication ended. She found herself back in the Gateway's command center with Dr. Okafor and her crew looking at her expectantly. What do they say? Dr. Okafor asked. Elena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of humanity's future settling on her shoulders. They said we need to give humanity a demonstration of what's possible. And I think I know how to do it. She turned to address her crew. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to do something that will either save human civilization or start a civil war. Probably both. What are your orders, Captain? Chief Martinez asked. Elena looked around at the faces of people who had become more than just a crew over the past months. They had become humanity's first true citizens of a galactic community, enhanced by architect technology and wisdom in ways that made them fundamentally different from baseline humans. We're going to Earth, she said. And we're going to show them exactly what the architects have been offering us. Every major population center on the planet is going to see what humanity could become if we make the right choices. Captain, Rodriguez said carefully, that's going to be seen as a direct challenge to every government on Earth. Elena smiled grimly. Exactly. It's time for humanity to choose what kind of species they want to be. And they can't make that choice without seeing all their options. As the Gateway began preparations for its journey to Earth, Elena knew they were crossing a line from which there could be no return. They were no longer just explorers or diplomats. They had become the catalyst for humanity's transformation, willing to risk everything to give their species a chance at transcendence. The coalition battle groups would reach their position in 18 hours. The Gateway would reach Earth in 12. Elena just hoped that what they were about to show humanity would be enough to prevent the catastrophe that seemed increasingly inevitable. Outside the ship, reality shimmered as the architects began their own preparations for what was to come. The next few days would determine whether humanity would join the galactic community as equals or destroy itself, fighting over the scraps of possibilities they couldn't understand. The Gateway, once dismissed as worthless salvage, had become the most important ship in human history. Now it was time to prove that humanity was worthy of its potential. The Gateway emerged from dimensional space 300,000 kilometers above Earth, appearing in normal space with a flash of quantum energy that registered on every sensor array in the solar system. Elena stood on the bridge, watching her home planet grow larger on the main screen, knowing that what happened in the next few hours would determine the fate of human civilization. Coalition battle groups are moving to intercept, Rodriguez reported from the tactical station. ETA 40 minutes. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Elena nodded grimly. The coalition had responded exactly as expected. Fear and the need for control had overridden any consideration of what might be best for humanity as a whole. Commence the demonstration protocol. I want every major population center on Earth to see exactly what the architects have offered us. Dr. Okafor moved to the quantum communication array, her enhanced consciousness reaching out to coordinate with architect collectives across multiple dimensional layers. Around the gateway, reality began to shimmer as beings of pure energy took positions in the space around Earth. Captain, Dr. Chun called from her sensor station, I'm detecting massive energy buildups at 12 locations around the planet. The architects are manifesting physical forms in Earth's dimension. Elena watched as the main screen split to show multiple views from satellites around Earth. Above New York, London, Beijing, Mumbai, Lagos, Sao Paulo, Moscow, Tokyo, Sydney, Cairo, Mexico City, and Los Angeles, massive structures were materializing out of nothing. Each one was different, reflecting the unique aesthetic of different architect collectives, but all of them were clearly artificial and clearly beyond human technological capability. My God, Chief Martinez breathed. They're beautiful. The structures were indeed magnificent. Crystalline formations that caught and refracted sunlight into rainbow patterns. Flowing organic shapes that seemed to grow and change as they stabilized in three-dimensional space. Geometric forms that challenged human perception with their impossible angles and shifting surfaces. Each one was easily the size of a city, hovering silently above major population centers like benevolent monuments to possibilities humanity had never imagined. Global communications networks are going crazy, Rodriguez reported. Every news organization on the planet is trying to figure out what's happening. Government and military communications are saturated with emergency traffic. Elena opened a channel to Earth's global emergency broadcast network, overriding security protocols with technology the architects had provided. Her image appeared on screens around the world, in homes, offices, and government buildings where world leaders were frantically trying to understand what was happening above their cities. Citizens of Earth, Elena began, her voice carrying clearly across every communication channel on the planet. My name is Captain Elena Vasquez of the U.S. Gateway, formerly the U.S. Retriever. 6 months ago, my crew and I discovered something that has changed our understanding of humanity's place in the universe. Today, we share that discovery with all of you. She gestured to the displays showing the magnificent structures hovering above Earth's cities. These are representatives of the architects, a collective of advanced civilizations that have transcended the limitations of three-dimensional existence. For 40 years, they have been in communication with humanity through the sacrifice of Dr. Sarah Okafor, who maintained contact with them at the cost of her normal life. Today, they offer humanity membership in a galactic community of conscious beings working together for the betterment of all life. Elena paused, knowing that her next words would be crucial. The architects have shared technology with us that could solve every major problem facing human civilization. Unlimited clean energy that could eliminate scarcity. Medical advances that could end aging and disease. Transportation technology that could take us to the stars. They offer all of this freely, with only one requirement: that humanity prove it can use these gifts wisely. On screens around the world, the magnificent alien structures began to emit gentle pulses of energy. These weren't weapons or threats, but demonstrations. Above New York, the architect structure projected a holographic display showing designs for fusion reactors that could power the entire planet safely for millennia. Above London, medical technologies that could regenerate damaged tissue and extend human life indefinitely. Above Beijing, transportation systems that could move people and goods across interstellar distances without environmental impact. The choice is yours, Elena continued. The architects will not impose their gifts on humanity. They will not conquer or control us, but They also will not share their knowledge with those who would use it to dominate others or preserve systems based on scarcity and competition. The technology they offer responds to consciousness, wisdom, and the genuine desire to benefit all conscious beings. Elena's image was replaced by feeds from the gateway, showing the crew working alongside incomprehensible alien technology with an ease that demonstrated months of cooperation and mutual respect. Dr. Okafor appeared, her enhanced state obvious in the way she moved and the harmonics in her voice as she spoke about her experiences communicating with beings from higher dimensions. The Hegemony Coalition has demanded control of our relationship with the architects. Elena's voice continued as the feeds showed coalition battle groups moving toward the gateway. They believe that contact with alien civilizations should be managed by existing governmental authorities. But the architects have made it clear that their gifts cannot be hoarded, controlled, or weaponized. They can only be received by those who have developed the wisdom to use them responsibly. Around the world, the response was immediate and intense. In some cities, crowds gathered beneath the alien structures, looking up in wonder at possibilities they had never imagined. In others, panic set in as people fled from what they perceived as an alien invasion. Government buildings buzzed with emergency sessions as world leaders tried to decide how to respond to the unprecedented situation. Captain Rodriguez said urgently, "The coalition battle groups have increased speed. They'll be in weapons range in 15 minutes. And they're not responding to our communications." Elena had expected this. Fear and the desire for control were powerful motivators, and the coalition leadership would see the global demonstration as a direct challenge to their authority. Activate defensive systems. But I want minimum necessary force only. These are our people, even if they're making the wrong choice. The gateway's dimensional shields flickered to life, creating a barrier that existed partially outside normal three-dimensional space. The quantum disruption fields began charging, ready to disable any attacking vessels without causing permanent damage. Most importantly, the emergency dimensional jump system stood ready to move the ship to safety if the situation became untenable. Dr. Okafor, Elena said, "I need to speak with the architects. The coalition is about to attack, and I want to make sure they understand that this doesn't represent all of humanity." Dr. Okafor nodded and connected to the quantum communication array. Within moments, the familiar presence of the architect collective touched Elena's consciousness. "We are aware of the approaching vessels, Elena Vasquez. We are also aware of the global response to our demonstration. Humanity's reaction is exactly what we expected. They're going to attack us," Elena said. "I don't want you to think that all humans are this aggressive. We do not judge your species by the actions of a frightened few." Young Elena, observe the global response more carefully. Fear exists, yes, but it is balanced by wonder, curiosity, and hope. Many of your people understand what we are offering. They simply lack the political power to act on that understanding. Elena realized the architects were right. The news feed from around the world showed a complex picture. Yes, there was panic and fear, but there was also excitement, wonder, and growing crowds of people demanding that their governments accept the alien offer. Protests were forming in several cities, not against the aliens, but against the governments trying to control contact with them. The test we have placed before humanity is not whether you can avoid conflict, Elena Vasquez. It is whether you can transcend that conflict and choose growth over stagnation. Watch what happens next. Elena felt the architect presence withdraw just as the first coalition vessels came into weapons range. Admiral Chen's flagship, the UES Dominance, led the formation with its weapons powered and targeting systems locked onto the gateway. "This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Coalition Fleet," came the transmission. "Captain Vasquez, you are in violation of direct orders from legitimate governmental authority. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." Elena opened a response channel, knowing that her words were being broadcast to every coalition ship and probably being monitored by news organizations around the world. "Admiral Chun, I respectfully decline to surrender. The Gateway and its crew are operating under the authority of something greater than any human government. We represent humanity's future among the stars, and we won't allow fear to destroy that future. You have 30 seconds to reconsider, Captain. I have orders to use any force necessary to secure that alien technology. Elena looked around her bridge at the crew who had become her family over the past months. Dr. Okafor stood at the quantum communication array, her enhanced consciousness maintaining contact with beings who existed across multiple dimensions. Chief Martinez monitored systems that combined human engineering with alien science in ways that redefined what was possible. Dr. Chun analyzed data streams that carried information from civilizations spanning galaxies. Admiral Chun, Elena said calmly, "You're welcome to try to take the Gateway. But I should warn you that the technology you're trying to capture won't work for you. It requires a level of consciousness and wisdom that can't be forced or faked. Attack us if you must, but understand that you're fighting for something that will turn to scrap metal the moment you get it." 20 seconds, Captain. Elena turned to her crew. "All hands, prepare for defensive action. Remember, these are our people, even if they're scared and making the wrong choices. Minimum force, maximum protection." The attack came exactly on schedule. Admiral Chin's battle group opened fire with every weapon they possessed, unleashing enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The energy beams and kinetic projectiles struck the Gateway's dimensional shields and simply disappeared. The shields didn't absorb the weapons or deflect them. They made them cease to exist by shifting them into dimensional space, where they couldn't affect three-dimensional reality. "Return fire," Elena ordered. "Quantum disruption pulse, minimum power." The Gateway responded with a pulse of energy that rippled out from the ship like a gentle wave. When it reached the Coalition vessels, their electronic systems simply stopped functioning. Weapons powered down, engines went offline, life support switched to emergency backup. The ships were completely disabled, but unharmed, floating helplessly in space. "This is Captain Vasquez to all Coalition vessels," Elena broadcast. "Your ships are disabled, but undamaged. Emergency life support will function normally. You will be towed back to base by automated systems that will activate in 1 hour. I'm sorry it had to come to this, but humanity's future is too important to be destroyed by fear." Around the world, news feeds showed the brief battle and its aftermath. The most advanced military force humanity possessed had been neutralized in seconds by technology that seemed more like magic than science. But, more importantly, the feed showed the reaction of Earth's population. Crowds in major cities had grown larger during the battle, with people demanding that their governments accept the alien offer rather than fight it. Protests were spreading as ordinary citizens realized what their leaders were trying to deny them. For the first time in human history, a significant portion of the world's population was united in demanding transcendence over fear. "Captain," Dr. Okafor said, her voice carrying new harmonics as she channeled communication from multiple architect collectives, "they want to offer Earth a direct demonstration of what's possible. They're asking permission to activate the quantum enhancement fields around each of their structures." Elena understood immediately. The architect structures hovering above Earth cities weren't just for show. They were quantum enhancement fields capable of temporarily elevating human consciousness to higher dimensional awareness. Anyone within their influence would experience, for a brief time, what was like to perceive reality as the architects did. "Do it," Elena said. "Let humanity see what they could become." Around the world, the magnificent alien structures began to pulse with gentle, rhythmic energy. The effect was immediate and profound. People standing beneath the structures found their consciousness expanded beyond anything they had ever experienced. They could perceive the quantum foam that underlay reality. They could sense the connections between all living things. They could feel the presence of advanced civilizations across the galaxy, all working together for the betterment of conscious existence. For 10 minutes, nearly 1 billion humans experienced transcendence. They felt what it was like to be part of something greater than themselves, to understand the universe at a level that made their previous concerns seem petty and meaningless. They saw the possibilities that lay ahead if humanity could overcome its limitations and join the galactic community. When the enhancement fields powered down, the effect on Earth was immediate. The protests that had been growing around the world exploded into full-scale movements demanding that their governments accept the alien offer. People who had experienced transcendence refused to go back to systems based on scarcity, fear, and competition. Elena watched the news feeds with amazement as human civilization began to transform itself in real time. The experience of expanded consciousness had given people a direct understanding of what the architects were offering, and they wanted it. "Captain," Rodriguez said with wonder in his voice, "we did it. Humanity is choosing transcendence over fear." Elena smiled as she watched crowds of people around the world demanding that their leaders accept humanity's invitation to join the galactic community. The Gateway, once dismissed as worthless salvage, had become the catalyst for the most important transformation in human history. But even as she celebrated, Elena knew that the real work was just beginning. Choosing transcendence was only the first step. Now humanity had to learn to live up to that choice. The future had never looked brighter or more challenging. 1 year after the global demonstration, Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the Gateway, watching the most ambitious construction project in human history take shape in the space around Earth. The ship that had once been dismissed as worthless salvage was now the command center for humanity's first interstellar infrastructure network, and Elena could hardly believe what her species had accomplished in such a short time. Status report on the orbital ring construction, she requested as DR. Okafor approached, her consciousness now so enhanced by years of interaction with the architects that she seemed to exist partially in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Construction is ahead of schedule," Dr. Okafor reported, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with quantum frequencies. "The orbital manufacturing platforms are operating at full capacity. We'll have clean fusion power for the entire planet within 6 months. The quantum communication network linking all major population centers will be online within 3 months. And the first interstellar transport hub will be ready for testing in 2 weeks." Elena nodded, still amazed by the speed of humanity's transformation. The global awakening that had followed the architect demonstration had triggered the most rapid period of technological and social advancement in human history. Governments that had tried to suppress contact with the architects found themselves replaced by leaders who embraced transcendence. The old economic systems based on scarcity had given way to abundance-based economies powered by architect technology. Most remarkably, humanity had accomplished all of this while maintaining social cohesion and avoiding the devastating wars that had seemed inevitable just a year ago. And the architect integration program? Elena asked. "We now have over 10,000 humans who have undergone consciousness enhancement procedures," Dr. Okafor replied. "Each one serves as a bridge between baseline humanity and the architect collectives. The network effect is accelerating human development beyond our most optimistic projections." Elena moved to the observation windows and looked out at the massive construction taking place around Earth. Orbital platforms the size of cities were manufacturing technologies that seemed like magic just a year ago. Transport ships that could travel between star systems in hours were being assembled by robots, working alongside enhanced humans who could perceive 11 dimensions of space-time. Most remarkably, humans and architect representatives were working together as equals, sharing knowledge and capabilities in ways that benefited both civilizations. "Captain," Chief Martinez called from the engineering section, "we're receiving a priority communication from the Alpha Centauri expedition. They've made contact." Elena's pulse quickened. The Alpha Centauri expedition represented humanity's first attempt to establish contact with alien civilizations beyond the architect collective. 3 months ago, a fleet of 12 ships equipped with the most advanced technology available had set out to investigate signals that the architects had detected from the Alpha Centauri system. The fleet was commanded by Admiral Morrison, who had requested the assignment personally. "Put them through," Elena said, moving to the main communications console. Admiral Morrison's image appeared on the screen, but she looked different. Her eyes held the same enhanced quality that characterized humans who had undergone consciousness expansion, and there was an excitement in her expression that Elena had never seen before. "Captain Vasquez," Admiral Morrison began, "I'm transmitting from orbit around Alpha Centauri B3. We've made contact with an indigenous civilization, and the situation is extraordinary." Elena felt her breath catch. Contact with non-architect aliens had been a theoretical possibility, but actually finding other intelligent species so close to Earth was beyond their most optimistic hopes. "Tell me everything, Admiral." "The inhabitants call themselves the Kalari, and they're remarkable. They're a silicon-based life form that exists primarily in the planet's crystal formations. They've been trying to contact other civilizations for over 1,000 years, but their technology is based on harmonic resonance rather than electromagnetic radiation. We never would have detected them without architect translation protocols." Admiral Morrison's image was replaced by footage from the surface of Alpha Centauri B3. Elena found herself looking at vast crystal forests that pulsed with internal light, creating patterns of incredible beauty and complexity. As she watched, she realized that the patterns weren't random. They were communications, messages being transmitted through harmonic frequencies that traveled through the planet's crystalline structure. "The Kalari are natural musicians," Admiral Morrison continued. "Their entire civilization is based on harmony, both musical and social. They've never developed weapons because they literally cannot conceive of destroying harmony. When they learned that we came from a species that has historically been prone to conflict, they were fascinated rather than frightened. They want to learn how consciousness can transcend its limitations." Elena felt a profound sense of wonder. Humanity had spent a year learning to transcend their own limitations with help from the architects, and now they were encountering a species that had achieved harmony through completely different means. "What do they need from us?" Elena asked. "Knowledge exchange," Admiral Morrison replied. "The Kalari have mastered biological harmony, but they've never developed the kind of technology that allows travel between star systems. They've been isolated on their world for their entire evolutionary history. They want to learn about the galaxy beyond their system, and they have insights into consciousness and social cooperation that even the architects find valuable." Elena realized that humanity had just taken another enormous step forward. They were no longer just recipients of alien knowledge. They were becoming facilitators, helping to connect different species and share knowledge across the galaxy. "Admiral, establish a permanent embassy on Alpha Centauri B3. I want full cultural and scientific exchange programs in place within 60 days. This could be the beginning of something incredible." "Already in progress, Captain. But there's more. The Kalari have told us about other species in nearby systems. Apparently, there are at least 17 different civilizations within 50 light years of Earth. Most of them have been trying to establish contact with each other for centuries, but they lack the technology for interstellar communication." Elena felt the implications hit her like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't just joining a galactic community dominated by the architects. They were entering a region of space filled with diverse civilizations, each with their own unique approaches to consciousness and technology. And because of humanity's relationship with the architects, they were positioned to become a central hub for communication and cooperation between all of these species. "Captain Dr. Okafor said, her enhanced consciousness picking up quantum communications from multiple sources, the architect collectives are expressing what I can only describe as profound satisfaction. Apparently, this is exactly what they hoped would happen when they first made contact with humanity." Elena turned to Dr. Okafor with curiosity. "What do you mean?" The architects have been watching this region of space for millennia, waiting for a species with the right combination of technological capability, social adaptability, and transcendent potential to serve as a catalyst for broader galactic integration. They've been in contact with dozens of young civilizations over the eons, but none of them developed the specific qualities needed to facilitate contact between multiple species. Elena began to understand. They weren't just offering to help humanity transcend our limitations. They were preparing us to help other species do the same. Precisely. And now that process is beginning. Within the next decade, this region of space will become the most active center of interspecies cooperation and development in the galaxy. The Gateway won't just be humanity's most important ship. It will become the diplomatic and technological hub for 17 different civilizations. Elena looked around the ship that had started as a piece of abandoned salvage and had become the most crucial vessel in human space. The irony wasn't lost on her. Something that had been dismissed as worthless had become the foundation for humanity's greatest achievement. Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez called from the tactical station. We're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Something big is approaching through dimensional space. Elena moved to the tactical display, wondering what new development was about to change their understanding of the situation. The energy signatures were unlike anything they'd seen before, even from the architects. Whatever was approaching was operating on a scale that dwarfed anything humanity had encountered. Dr. Okafor, are the architects expecting visitors? Elena asked. Dr. Okafor's consciousness expanded into quantum space as she consulted with the architect collectives. When she returned to normal awareness, her expression was filled with excitement and awe. Captain, the Galactic Council is coming. Elena felt her blood run cold. The what? The Galactic Council, the governing body that coordinates cooperation between advanced civilizations across the entire galaxy. They're composed of representatives from species that have achieved transcendence and dedicated themselves to fostering the development of younger civilizations. Apparently, humanity's success in facilitating contact between multiple species in such a short time has attracted their attention. Elena realized that the stakes had just increased exponentially. Humanity had spent a year learning to interact with one group of advanced aliens and had recently made contact with a second species. Now, they were about to meet representatives from the entire galaxy. How many species are we talking about? Elena asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. According to the architects, the Galactic Council represents over 3,000 distinct civilizations spanning most of the galaxy. They're here to formally welcome humanity and the local species cluster into the greater galactic community. Elena felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders once again. The Gateway had become more than just a ship or even a diplomatic hub. It had become humanity's gateway to cosmic significance. All hands, prepare for the most important first contact in galactic history, Elena announced over the ship's communication system. We're about to represent not just humanity, but 17 different species to the governing body of an entire galaxy. Let's make sure we're ready. As the Gateway prepared for the arrival of the Galactic Council, Elena reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. A routine salvage mission had led to first contact with aliens. First contact had led to humanity's transcendence of its limitations. Transcendence had led to contact with multiple species. And now, contact with multiple species was leading to membership in a galactic civilization spanning thousands of worlds. The ship that had once been called the Rust Bucket was about to become the most important vessel in galactic history. And Elena Vasquez, who had started as a simple salvage captain, was about to become humanity's first galactic ambassador. Outside the ship, reality shimmered as beings of unimaginable power, and wisdom began materializing in normal space. The future of not just humanity, but of 17 different civilizations was about to be decided in the next few hours. Elena stood on the bridge of the Gateway, looking out at the stars and feeling a profound sense of gratitude for the series of coincidences and choices that had brought them to this moment. They'd started with nothing but a piece of abandoned junk floating in an asteroid field. They were ending with a place among the stars and the opportunity to help guide the development of cosmic civilization. The Gateway had proven that sometimes the most valuable things are the ones that others consider worthless. And humanity had proven that sometimes the species with the greatest potential are the ones that seem the most unlikely to succeed. As the first ships of the Galactic Council emerged from dimensional space, larger and more magnificent than anything Elena had ever imagined, she knew that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. The Gateway had brought them this far. Now it was time to see how far they could go. The worthless Salvage had become the most crucial ship in galactic history, and the journey into the infinite had only just begun.